Well, hey, business building warrior, welcome to Silent Sales Machine Radio, the show that was actually recently voted the number one show for Amazon sellers in the world. Thousands of people voted in an independent survey, and we came out on top. That's pretty cool. So thanks for joining us. We're honored by that. But today we're not going to talk a lot about Amazon. Really, we're not going to talk at all about Amazon, maybe a little bit. We're going to talk about e-commerce, and we're going to talk about a student of ours who came into our community. We were talking before we hit the record button today, almost 2 decades ago. If you weren't aware, we've been doing e-commerce coaching around here for 22 years, making us, as far as I know, the longest running e-commerce coaching company in the world. I'm still using the same coaching director that I started out with all those years ago, Nathan. He's doing such a great job for us and the team. But the point I'm making is we've got students from way back, and it's fun to check in with them and see how they're doing. This student came to us back before Amazon was even a thing. He was doing eBay, and we had some great eBay training. He was doing well with it. And I'll let him tell his own story. His name is Chris Vallone, and he has restored VW Beetles, the cars, and sold them starting on eBay out of a little garage at his home. And now he's done hundreds of them, including some big name celebrities that you'll hear us talk about today that he's done work for now. He's a foremost expert in this arena. But there's a lot of lessons in this story today, in this conversation, no matter what your approach is or where you're at in your journey, I should say, in e-commerce and building a business. Maybe you're brand new to the idea of having your own business online and you're kind of curious what it entails and what works and what doesn't. Or maybe you've been doing it a long time. Maybe you've been nose to the grindstone, focused on just Amazon and selling physical products, and you're looking for what else is out there. There's going to be some inspiration and encouragement for you today. Because remember, I've said multiple times as we approach 1,000 episodes of this podcast, I've said multiple times in multiple episodes, this is a multiple income stream podcast. We are a multiple income stream community. We talk about Amazon because we see that as the low-hanging fruit business model that pretty much anyone who's willing to do the work can wade into and earn while they learn, start building great relationships, getting great connections, putting money in the bank, building a great business that opens up a lot of other doors that allows you to start doing some of the things like what we're going to hear Chris talking about today. Like I said, he's built a beautiful business. He's been working with his dad for a long time. They've had some incredible clients come through their business and they've sold cars online, and he's got his own auction site that he's launched. Now he's just kind of followed where the opportunity has taken him for several years. And we've actually had him on the show a couple times. He was one of our first 20 or 30 guests when we started this podcast back in 2016. It's great to have him back on the show again today. You're going to really enjoy his story. It's not a technical podcast episode today that's going to give you specific strategies to sell more on Amazon, but it is an episode that's going to open up your mind to what the possibilities are. I share some stories from some of our other students that maybe you've never heard before. So sit back, relax, enjoy this opportunity to get into the mind of a very successful entrepreneur from our community who's built a special business and has some encouraging and inspirational insights for you today. Enjoy. So, Chris, welcome back to Silent Sales Machine Radio. Great to see you again, man.
Great to see you, man. I can't believe how long I know you.
Yeah,
It's
we were
nutty.
talking before we hit the record button. It's weird. We start talking decades here, man. It's kind of crazy, huh?
It really is. I remember getting your book, Silent Sales Machine, and learning eBay. That's the time when you were focused on eBay. And,
Right.
my background is art and cartooning and filmmaking. And I was a filmmaker before I got into any sort of e-commerce. And, for about 10 years, I did my own films, independent stuff. And I'm talking back in the day when we shot on tape,
Right.
mini DV tape.
Yeah.
I know there was VHS before that, but it was mini DV tape was digital.
Yep.
I remember when that was a thing, and that was kind of a revolution back then. So I always had the classic Volkswagen Beetle in the background as a hobby. So whenever I went on my film shoots or I had my art gear, I always threw that into a Beetle. I wanted to be the artist with a bug. And so that's the only thing. I don't know any other car. So you give me a Honda or Mitsubishi or Subaru, I don't know how to fix those. It's just the classic bug. And got to my late 20s, read your book, and I'm like, I told my dad, I think I'm going to start an eBay business. And he looked at me like, yeah, there's something wrong with you. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't, what is, and this is, I think we're talking almost 20 years ago, right?
Yeah, yeah, just under 20 is as if I'm doing my math right. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, like 18, 19 years ago, something like that.
Yep.
And, I think it was in the very early stages when I was applying my film skills to showcase the cars on an eBay auction.
Right.
And there was a little bit of a hassle embedding the video into the eBay auction and all that kind of stuff. But gosh, that first year, I mean, we banged out, we flipped 13 bugs out of our house. So every month we found a car, and I would, with my art background, I knew how to jazz them up and detail them and grab them and then just turn them in on eBay, and using your techniques to then funnel the traffic to my website, all that kind of stuff. Generate the newsletter. Social media then came into play, YouTube, and that's when people called me and said, I don't want to bid on any bugs of yours. Can you just build me one? And
Mm-hmm.
so it came down to like, holy cow, I could take like orders from people to build a Volkswagen Beetle. And that's what happened. It was family cars coming to us, guys that, bought one in 1967 or they were born in 54 and they wanted to revitalize their youth. So I would either find it for them or they would send me a Beetle to restore for them.
Yeah.
And
And I
I've been
remember
doing that for 20 years.
the first time we had you on the show, at that time, this is, we're talking 15 plus years ago, it's maybe 17 years or so. Well, you know what? The podcast started, we're not that far back because the podcast started about we'll come up on 10 years ago. So you were in our community for a while, but we brought you on the show early on. You're one of the first few guests we ever had. So about 9, 10 years ago, when you told this story for the first time, at that point in time, it was Jerry Seinfeld was the most prominent customer you'd had. Have you
Yeah.
topped that yet?
Oh, I haven't. He's tough to top. I mean, he's a billionaire or something, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
no, we've had some of the networks come to us. Like we've had Netflix sit down with Netflix. We
Mhm.
had a sit down with Discovery Channel, Spike TV, but nothing ever panned out because they wanted the drama. They wanted me cursing my dad out and throwing wrenches at him,
Right, right, right,
given
right.
that, chopper, American chopper kind of a feel.
Yes, they want the
And
conflict. Yeah.
I
I had
couldn't
some
do it.
friends of mine, a good friend of mine used to do some work for me. His kids got into one of those reality TV shows, and I always suspected it was all scripted, right?
Yeah,
And it is. And
it
like you
is.
just said, these reality shows are so, and I think we've all figured it out by now, right? But back when they first came into being a thing, these reality shows, we all kind of wondered, like, is this really like legit? They would do scenes, they would suggest lines, and they would have the kids do multiple takes of these confrontational scenarios. And the kids were like, I don't want to say that. That's really mean. Like, "Hey, we
Yeah,
need you to say it, no meaner next time. Let's do it again. Right. Like it
yeah,
was totally scripted. And so, yeah, I love you guys protected the integrity. Like, nah, I love my dad and we're just going to, if you want to record us doing what we do, cool. But I can just hear that conversation. I love it.
yeah. I have too much respect for my pop. Hardworking guy. I'm his only boy. I got four sisters. And look, no doubt we've had arguments before in the shop, but not to the point to go so overboard. The way I speak to you is also the way I speak on my YouTube channel. So my followers see me as this.
Yeah.
And if I came off as a
There's no
hack,
character. Yeah.
yeah, because you can rise real high with those shows and then come crashing down. And I
Yep.
just felt like, the longevity of it, I don't want to come off that way.
Yeah, right, right. You want to, and there's a lot of conversations you want to have with family. You don't want out there, man. If we're going to have a conflict done in private is what mature adults do. This whole
Yep.
airing your conflict for the whole world to see, like, come on, man.
Yeah.
You're kind of cashing out. Yeah, kudos, man, for sticking to your thing, and it's been a blessing for you and your family. I mean, you guys have done well.
Yeah.
You built a beautiful business out of this, but just kind of take me through the journey. This is a different episode. I probably said a few things about that in the introduction today. It's not like our
Hmm.
typical episodes, but I love all the different creative ways you can use the internet to launch and grow multiple income streams and build the business of your dreams. And just kind of talk
Yep.
me through parts of your story that I maybe already know that listeners who've never heard of you might not. Just the floor is yours, man.
So basically, from starting in the house, doing that first year, the 13 cars, and then we were living in a community, kind of like a gated community.
Okay.
And at one point, there was 11 different bugs around this community parked in different spots because I had no parking spaces. And
So
they
you
were
borrowed
some
other
rusty.
people's driveways.
Oh my God, man. And we were tearing engines out in this little one car garage. And like after that year, The homeowners association was like, yeah, you got to stop.
Time out.
So, but it all came at good time because we found a 54 Beetle in and around the area, which was rare to find now. Very tough to find a 54. And it was in a guy's driveway, just covered. And we bought that thing for, I think, a song like, I don't know, $500, which is unheard of now. And brought it home, restored it, painted it, did all the nice things to it. I put it up on eBay as a buy it now. And I said to my dad, if this thing goes quick, we got to get a shop. And sure enough, 2 days, buy it now. Not even a offer. It was a buy it now. And we sold it to Billy Joel Armstrong, who's Green Day.
Yeah.
He's the singer to Green Day.
Lead singer.
So, yep. So I'm like, all right, yeah, we need a shop.
Crazy.
So, yeah.
That's crazy. I was just talking a couple of days ago with my wife about Green Day. I mean, they're talented musicians. I'm not necessarily a huge fan, but I saw a video of them playing one of their first gigs. It's a bunch of nerdy looking high school kids playing for their high school friends kind of thing. I was like, that's crazy.
So that's what kicked it off. That's what really
cool, man. Wow. Do you remember how much it went for?
Yeah, I think at the time it went for 25 grand. And that was really good back then. I mean, now those cars are double, more than sometimes double that. Yeah. They've grown, they've really climbed in value over the last, 15, 20 years. But that was the kickoff. And then from there on, I mean, for 18 years, it's been restoring for people. And we've been like a 2-year wait list building bugs for people. So if you called me today and said, I need a bug, I'm going to be like, you got to wait 2 years, So there's a bit of a list there. And yeah, I mean, there's a couple trials and, there's tough things that are happening right now with parts. Parts are there, but the quality of the parts has really been diminishing. And a lot of stuff is coming from China, Mexico, Brazil, those kind of places, And it's scary. I'm talking parts that are brake parts, wheel cylinders, master cylinders, things like that are failing within just a few months. And that kind of stuff is scaring me because I have no control of the quality of the parts. I try to get the best I can.
Yeah.
But when you get a German box that says German OE equivalent part and you open it up and and there's a sticker of Taiwan inside, that's what something's going on here. And I don't want someone crashing on me or God forbid something like that happens. That's what's kind of scary.
Right. That makes total sense, man, especially those older cars and, all the supply chain stuff that probably hits you guys. Stuff that used to take you a month to get, takes 4 months to get now kind of thing, the whole COVID. How'd your business do during the whole COVID crazy?
My 2 best years.
Really?
During COVID. I thought I was going to die because we're not a necessity. We're a toy.
Right.
And what was amazing was, and I thought they were going to shut us down, but the fact that we fell under the automotive realm, we stayed open. But my gosh, it was like people were coming saying it's do or die. I almost died from COVID. I want to relive my youth before I go.
Wow.
Here's what it is. Open, here's my check, whatever it is, do it. And that's what we were getting. Yeah.
Just to, and I know a lot of your story. You've been on the show a couple of times before, like I alluded to. Most listeners today have never heard of you and what you do. So let's mention your business. There might be some VW collector guy out there that's like, oh, I got to meet this dude. How do people get in touch with you? Where do they see more about your VW work specifically?
So the business is Classic VW Bugs. So any website is classicvwbugs.com. Handles for across my social platforms, same thing, Classic VW Bugs. That's where you could reach me. I mean, you could my phone number is on the site. You can call me. I'm a friendly guy. I don't have any secretaries or anything. You want to talk and we can talk.
Let's go. So yeah, I love it. So what were you doing before you wandered into that first bug and said, hey Dad, let's do this? Like you mentioned the movie production and that sort of thing. Like what was your primary business model before you got into this?
That was the dream, to be a filmmaker. I grew up with Spielberg and Lucas and Scorsese and Mel Gibson and all that, and I just wanted to be that filmmaker. So I wrote and directed and shot and produced my own films, even full-length feature scripts that I wrote, and that was my dream. I grew up like that. I mean, Terminator was a huge inspiration on me, and Shawshank Redemption, Forrest Gump, Usual Suspects, Braveheart, Gladiator, all that kind of stuff.
That's crazy, man. You're knocking off a lot of my top 20s right there in that list.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah,
same taste, same.
yeah,
A little
absolutely.
older than you, man, but we've got a similar taste in the movies we like. You rattled off some golden gems there.
Yep,
Love it.
yep. So
But I
that
mean,
was the dream.
that's a tough road. It's kind of like saying, "Hey, mom and dad, I'm going to move to Nashville and become a famous country singer."
Yeah,
Well, one out of every 50,000 people that
right.
happens, but for the rest of you, end up being a waiter, right?
Lottery
So,
ticket.
like,
Yep.
yeah, it's a rough path.
Yep.
Did you get any momentum or success before you jumped into bugs?
I did, like I got into certain some film festivals. I did a feature-length action film that I shot all on my own, and I actually sold it internationally, and they dubbed it in different languages in the Philippines
Wow,
and places
that's
like
cool.
that, which was really cool. And I only made the movie for like $2,500. I didn't pay my actors. I had no crew, and I had at the time a professional digital video camera, and I would bring my bug, put my gear in the bug. We'd go to our film shoots. I'm like, all right, let's jump out of the car. Let's do these scenes. No permits. It was guerrilla style. And I had a stunt team out of Connecticut to get hooked up with these guys. To be like an indie filmmaker, to be able to do martial arts and action sequences was really cool. So I would write a lot of my scripts centered around using them. And yeah, I sold that internationally. And then one of my big highlights was I got into the Tribeca Film Festival with a horror short film that I made. So that was really cool because there's so many festivals, but there's really like a top 20 that you
Mhm.
want to get into, and Tribeca is one of them, because that's up there with like Sundance,
Right.
so that was a really cool. But like I said, like when I hit my late 20s, I'm like, all right, I'm living in New York. I, I'm doing odd end jobs. I was a substitute teacher. I used to fix your computer, come into your home, fix your computer if you needed help with that. So I did odd things to make a buck. But I felt the entrepreneurial spirit. I couldn't work for anybody. So when I decided to hang up the film stuff, I said, I can't work in a cubicle. I can't work for somebody. I have this drive. So that's why I just turned to you and turned to eBay, and that's where it all kicked off.
How many bugs have you guys sold?
Hundreds.
Yeah.
I couldn't count. I'd have to go back to my websites. I list all the cars we've ever worked on.
You
So
probably
I
sold more than
probably,
anyone in the world at this point. Used
maybe,
bugs.
I don't know. And I'm one of the only shops that just dedicates it to Beetle.
Yeah.
Some other shops will open up to, of course. I mean, we do work on the bus now and the Carmagia and the
Okay.
Thing, but as far as just restoration, just Beetle.
Gotcha.
But a lot of other shops will do other cars as well. But I think we're just solely
Yeah.
Beetle.
Now, when I call them bugs, is that a no-no? You keep saying beetle. I've always called them bugs. Does it
Doesn't
matter?
matter.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
it's
was just
okay.
making sure. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
that's all
want to
good.
insult all the aficionados out there, man. I just
No,
call
no,
them
no. Yeah, you're all good.
because some of the best car accidents I was in my youth with my mom driving were in our VW bugs.
No
She
kidding.
actually pinned one between two trees one time.
Oh my God.
With me in the kid seat. Yeah. She had a good handful of wrecks growing up. I don't remember any of them as I was little, but I hear the stories. Yeah, we always
Yeah.
had them growing up. So I remember the sound very well. It's like a loud sewing machine, man. All the
Yeah, a
70s.
little Tweety Bird, right? Yeah, everyone remembers the tweet. Yep.
That's right. I love it, man. So what lessons have you learned? This is an e-commerce show and it's good getting caught up with, people who've been in their community for, coming up on a couple decades at this point. And I appreciate you checking in from time to time. And
Yeah,
well, before we go there, have you been to one of our events yet? I can't remember.
I have, and I know you've invited me a couple times. I
Yeah, well,
need to
we're in
go for
Florida in
sure.
May. You got to swing by
Oh, geez,
because
what
you're
part?
down that way now. We're in Orlando in May.
Yeah, that's a couple hours from me.
Yeah, you got to come, man. Yeah,
Okay,
the website is theprovenconference.com. Go read up on it. Listeners, we want you there. We had about
definitely.
850 people there last year,
Oh, wow.
e-commerce business building warriors. And it'd be a delight to have you there, just kind of see what this community's grown into since you kind of checked in
Sure.
on us. But yeah, so what e-commerce lessons have you learned? You've mentioned you've were on eBay. Interestingly, I just heard Amazon's going to start selling cars. I don't think
No
they're selling
kidding.
used cars. Yeah, Amazon's getting into cars. Yeah, look into it. Just in the past few days, they announced that.
Wow.
So I don't know. There may be something there. Because you may or may not realize this, Chris. Many of our listeners probably do if they've heard me talk about it, but Amazon gets about half of all transactions online every day in the United States.
Wow.
eBay plus Walmart plus all the Shopify sites plus everyone else in the top 10 is still less than what Amazon gets every day. Okay.
Wow.
So Amazon is the beast of
Yeah.
online e-commerce, right? And growing. Now, Walmart's growing faster than Amazon is, but they're not going to catch up anytime soon. Amazon's just massive, right? So if there's opportunity there, it might be something for you to look into. Uh,
Yeah.
I want to hear from you. What e-commerce lessons have you learned on this journey? You've got your YouTube channel. You still doing anything with eBay?
Not really. No. I mean, if I just maybe buying some stuff. I mean, I branched off of eBay just because I got to a point where the one thing that plagued eBay, especially with cars, was non-paying bidders. So you get a car that's on there and it's 25, 30 grand, 40,000. And then the guy's like, I changed my mind. My grandson did the bidding for me. I apologize. I didn't mean to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And, eBay did get rid of the sellers being able to leave a negative feedback now. So there was
Right.
like, well, they did that, I don't know how many years ago. And that, I think from there, just they put it right into the hands of the buyer. And then whatever
Mm-hmm.
happens, happens. Or just shake it off and just relist it. And I'm like, but then it looks bad when you relist.
Right.
People think there's something wrong with the
Yeah.
car.
Yeah.
And so I was getting way too much of that. So that's when, I was just focusing solely on the bills.
Yeah. But you had found your community, right? Which is one of the lessons we talk about in the silent sales machine. The greatest asset you'll ever have is that community of people who can't wait to
Yep.
hear from you again, right? So as you start branching off of the big boy platforms, you start building your own audience, over time. That's the trajectory I like to see people take, because they got their own audience now.
Mm.
And interestingly enough, on that point, another one of the great stories that have emerged out of our community over the years. You remember Death Wish Coffee, Mike Brown?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I still touch base with him from time to time. So he had the Super Bowl commercial, which our community helped him win. Huge sales day, huge spike in sales, right? But the interesting part of that story that feeds into where I want you to go next is his best sales days came when he sent email blasts out to
Yeah.
his list of people who couldn't wait to hear from him again. That was the asset. Super Bowl exposure, beautiful, right? And that was paid for. He won a contest. And people who don't know what I'm talking about, go to the website pickmikebrown.com. Go check it out, read up on that story. But as exciting as it was to run an ad in the Super Bowl, Peyton Manning's last Super Bowl actually was the one, third quarter. Great ad for Death Wish Coffee. Huge sales spike. He had bigger sales spikes, multiple bigger sales spikes, when he would run promotions to his email list. So as you transitioned off eBay,
Yeah.
you had an audience still. You weren't nervous about finding new buyers and right? Because you have this core. I'm assuming you used your email list, or did you use other strategies to kind of get the word out about what you were up
I
to?
did. The big one for me was getting on YouTube and getting my face in front. I was one of the first VW YouTubers out there to start putting out, and you were the one that told me, pump out the content, give out the free information. So I went to the how-to route.
Yeah.
And for 18 years, I've been pumping out how-to information on YouTube on a weekly, regular basis. And then that led to, my gosh, a blast. And I mean, 3 to 4 hours of mail a day from all over the world,
Wow.
with people asking me, Chris, how do I fix this? Love your quality. Love this. How did you do this to this car? What color is that car that you were
That's
restoring?
awesome.
Could you do a video about this?
Yeah.
And, so it was that exploded for us. I mean, I generated a nice following in those first, early years of YouTube. And then that's how Jerry found me. I think I only had like 30,000 subscribers on YouTube, and Jerry saw me on YouTube. And that's when he called me. And I mean, it was a total shock. I mean, hey, Chris, this is Jerry Seinfeld. I'm like, get out of here.
You mentioned Netflix earlier. Still the top show that's most downloaded. I just heard that this
Oh,
morning.
really?
I don't know who was talking
Yeah.
about. The most downloaded show on Netflix is still Seinfeld.
I know. I
It's
still
still.
watch it.
So to get a call
Yeah.
from him, didn't you didn't think it was him? You thought it was one of your friends playing a
No.
joke or something, right?
Yeah, no, totally. Or just looks at, he's got, maybe it's just another Jewish guy in New York named Jerry Seinfeld. I
Right.
didn't know, but I was driving in my newer Beetle that I had at the time. It was on the Bluetooth, and I was heading into a dead zone. And my dad was like, pull over. I think this is him.
I think this is a real
And sure
dude.
enough, we heard his vernacular and his tone. And I'm like, you got to be kidding. And sure enough, and he walked right into my shop.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was really cool,
What's
And
he
so
like? Cool guy?
yeah, he's cool. Look, he's different stratosphere,
Sure, of
like
course.
he's just a different, but yeah, we hit it off. It was fun. And then I heard from him. Then a few years later, he sent me another one,
Really?
so it was really cool.
And I love it. I love it. There's not to derail from your story too much, but there's two other stories that I think will help encourage and inspire others that pop into my mind immediately. They're kind of along the same vein of what we've talked about. You, Death Wish Coffee. We've got Nancy, who made her baskets, her gift baskets. And I encouraged her create content that teaches others how to do exactly what you do. Become the expert at your craft that educates.
Yeah.
Blew up millions of views on YouTube, and she doesn't have to make wreaths anymore. She just teaches everyone else how to do this stuff. She was selling for 60, $80 a pop and
Wow.
on eBay, but she just couldn't get to all of it. So hey, I convinced her, create content. That's always the next step in the journey is whatever you're
Yes.
doing right now that's working, film it, document it, teach it to your future competitors, and become the leader of that community.
Right.
Whatever's working now, eventually someone's going to get better than you and outdo what you're doing. If you
Yeah.
don't take the steps I just described, start teaching others, train your future competition, in other words, which is a hard step to take. The other example is Wampler Pedals, a family that lives near us, and he and I were working on houses together. Do you remember the Wampler Pedals story? Have you ever heard that?
No, no.
Does it ring a bell? So this is just a guy they adopted from Russia like we did. They have a son that's about the age of our oldest son, and so he and I were working on some houses together as a side investment project. And he solders these guitar pedals, like guys who play electric guitar. He'd crack these things open, solder some wires together, make them sound different and unique. Local
Oh,
garage
wow.
bands in the area were using it, right? He's like, Jim, I'm getting more orders than I know what to do with, man. Give me some, because I was the business internet guy. He hadn't done anything with the internet really. Like I said, what you need to do is just film yourself doing it, stick it on YouTube and see what happens. He's like, well, I don't want to
Yeah.
train my competition. I'm like, just, you can shut it down if it doesn't go well.
Right.
You jump forward now, he's the Cadillac brand of guitar pedals. Like every
Wow.
major country music star you could name right now, someone on his team, and Brad Paisley has a Wampler pedal.
Amazing.
Just because
Yeah.
he created content. You know,
Yeah.
do what you do with excellence and keep doing it, but create content that educates and trains others on these areas of expertise.
Yeah.
Train your competition how to do exactly what you do. Throw the gates open. Good things happen. Become an educator. And that's what you did. And
Right.
there's so many stories from our community. And we start people off with these simple models, eBay, Amazon specifically, huge opportunities there. But over time, the doors will fling open if you
Yeah.
become an educator and a trainer, right? So speak to some of that. What thoughts come to mind as I kind of lay those stories out there, and how's that reflected in your journey?
Well, it's funny. When I first started doing it, I got to tell you, the flack that I got from some of the VW community
Oh, of
because
course.
I was giving away the information.
Exactly.
You're giving away our secrets. So you had some
Right.
of the older fellas that were, been around since the 60s or 70s,
Yep.
and they grew up with these cars, and they're like, why are you doing that? I'm like, because it all, like, I think what you told me, it comes back.
Yes, it
So whatever
does.
you give out will come back.
Yeah.
And I hit that wave in the very beginning, and I was generating, a good amount. And of course, some competitors came in and stuff, and they were trying things. But I think our videos came off a little more professional. I mean, the sound was good, the coloring, the lighting, all that kind of. With my background, I was able to,
Mm-hmm.
give it a good look.
Yeah, I
But
remember
yeah, I
having those
mean, it's
conversations with you. Like, don't worry about the production value. And like, Jim, I'm a movie maker, dude. I
yeah,
can't help it. The sound and the lighting has to be perfect. I'm
yeah,
like, all right, do your thing. But I don't think it's necessary, to have 95% of the impact it would have had otherwise. But obviously, use every advantage that you have, right?
yeah.
But it's the content. Hey, we'll get back to the great episode in just a moment. Sorry for the interruption, but I want to point something out. If you're enjoying this program, this podcast, could you do us a little favor? Could you spread the word? Send some friends to silentjimdotcom and say, hey, check out this podcast. Multiple streams of income, learn to sell on Amazon, great free content. Hey, help us spread the word. That's the way we market this show, is you sharing with others. That's why we have over 6 million downloads on iTunes alone. And speaking of iTunes, would you leave us a review? We love to see those iTunes reviews rolling in. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes as well. That really helps us out in the industry to get recognition and gain followers and subscribers. If you subscribe yourself, leave us a review. By the way, did you know that this show that you're listening to right now was voted as the #1 podcast for Amazon sellers by an independent survey in late 2024? That's right, the #1 show for Amazon sellers. We won, and you're a big part of why. So thank you for being a listener. You're the best part of this show. But hey, help us spread the word if you don't mind. That helps us continue to bring you quality content, attract high quality sponsors and other listeners who will pay attention to what we're doing here, because we want to teach you to use the internet creatively to launch and grow multiple streams of income. We need your help. to spread the word. We want to help others do the same. All right. God bless you, business building warrior. Thanks for a couple moments of your time. Let's get back to the show. But obviously, use every advantage that you have, right?
Yeah.
But it's the content. And
presentation would help a ton. And I also reflected that in my shop as well. So if you ever came to my shop, it's very clean.
Yes.
And a lot of the shops that would work on Volkswagens or, did any sort of mechanical work, things like that, it was always a little scary going in there, kind of grease monkey looking. Right. The floors are dirty and there's a kind of grime everywhere. But I would get a lot of compliments on that. So what that led to was when people would see your presentation, whether it's a video or in the shop, they're like, okay, he's then taking care of the product itself in a better way. Mm-hmm. There's more eye to detail. So they saw that in me. If I even had to come down and cleaning the little bolts or the little screws that hold on the turn switch, that kind of thing to make it look right, that's what we do. And so when you show that attention to detail,
people notice.
You start putting yourself up into a different, echelon
yes.
of clientele.
Yes.
So in the beginning, a lot of our restorations were, say, driver quality restoration. I tried to manage for a lower budget client. Because most Volkswagen people are just average Joes. They don't have a ton of money. And it was great doing those cars, don't get me wrong, but in the end, it wasn't paying the bills. Mm-hmm. So, and nothing against them, I'm a Volkswagen guy myself. But when I started targeting the guys that have multiple car collections, 20, 30 cars in their collections, and they want a cute bug for their living room so they can drink espresso and watch it and look at it. Mm-hmm. With their wife or something. That was my client when we started, say, focusing more on the museum-esque quality pieces and getting into the higher echelon than car shows like concours and getting accepted to some of these prestigious shows and winning at a concours was unheard of. I mean, I'm sitting next to a Duesenberg. You're talking a multi-million-dollar right. Classic car. And my Beetle, my 51 Beetle won at a concours. My dad and I, we looked at each other like, are you kidding?
Nuts. Wow.
This is nuts. So, yeah, as you're going through your journey and you develop your stride, that's what I've learned is that you take that risk, that's that big step, push it. I think we underestimate our push sometimes and our gut. And just sometimes you just do it. And that's the risk. And you might fail a bunch of times, but you just keep going. And so that's what we just kept doing. It just kept pushing to try to get better and better with each and every car that we restored. And that put us into a different bracket, So that's basically been it. I'm 47 now. I'm going to be 48 years old. And of course, the drive is still there, but it's not as like I was when I was in my 20s. So you start to get into a groove at this point. I'm looking to transition some things with the business. I'm doing more internet side of the business now that I want to eventually transition and maybe phase out the shop and maybe hand it to somebody. And I can still supply them the work, that kind of thing. Maybe get out of overhead side of things. So I have other things in the fire, a lot of irons in the fire right now that I'm hoping 2025 can start seeing that transition. My pop's getting older. It's tough to find some help, especially when my painter's up in New York. And I hear horror stories of people across the country too. Like, we're at a time now, a lot of people just, 30, 40% work effort is kind of there.
Yeah.
Maybe not with us at my shop, but like when I go to my painters or my other mechanics where I have to outsource some of the work, they keep telling me like, Chris, I fired 10 and I got to hire 9 more.
Yeah.
It's something
I think a lot
like
of industries are that way. The whole blue collar work ethic is, it's just really hard if there's a big squeeze. Inflation is having an effect right now too. Yeah. Everything's more expensive. And I think I don't blame people and the work ethic as much as I blame the systems that we've all kind of been under for a while.
True.
And it's just really hard. Like I look at fast food workers and I'm like, God bless you, man. Like, how are you doing it? You're showing up and you're supposed to have a good attitude and you're supposed to make a quality product and you're making, and you got to work full time to have a little tiny studio apartment in a small rural city. Like our economy is just, it's gotten off the rails a little bit, not to get into politics and that sort of thing, but I'm really hoping for a good swing back. But I think that's what's kind of happened is, it's just, it's been really hard to make ends meet. And that's why I've been an advocate. The main thing that I'm teaching is now these days is multiple streams of income. Now's the time. You talked about taking risks and specializing in these, strange little areas. It's never been less risky to take business risks than it is now.
Yeah,
You can test
exactly.
new ideas, a
Yep.
handful a week if you want to, right?
No, totally.
And so you got to be
Yeah.
doing that. You got to be out there grinding, testing new little, experimental
Yes.
things. So what are some of the things that you tested, ideas that maybe went well or maybe didn't go well, that paid off and didn't pay off? Like, what's that journey been? Can you think of some examples? I always love kind of hearing how an
Yeah.
entrepreneur's brain works when it comes to testing and trying new things.
Making my own parts.
Really?
So, yeah, I mean, and literally going to Home Depot or Big Lots or Job Lots. So I make a engine bay insulation kit for the Beetle, the Karmann Ghia. Now I'm dipping into the Porsche, the early Porsches, the 356 Porsches, which is like the bigger brother to the Beetle. It's very similar, same rear engine compartment. And
Okay,
I get
right.
this material from the hardware store, and it's a rubber tar material that's meant to take massive heat. And I have a template for these engine bays, and I cut them. And now that the Porsche world is kind of coming my way slowly, the margins for that product are just phenomenal. So tested that. I would go to Job Lots and pick up the outside floor mat that you put outside, maybe on your door, like a dust mat where you to kick your feet on before
Yeah,
you come
right.
in the house. I would make a 4-piece carpet kit for your Beetle with that. And so I was then selling those. So consulting. I was just on the call today with a guy in Canada. How do I fix my bug? The wiring harness here, I
Mm-hmm.
can't get to. How do I fix this? Or how do I get to the heat tubes? And I'm in his garage just like this, and he's asking me questions. So I'm doing that as well. So a lot of little things, but the part stuff is really cool. And the big one I'm doing this year, which I'm hoping it kicks off, is I started my own auction. So on my website, it's just going to be auctioning off air-cooled classic Volkswagens from the bus, the Ghia, the Porsche, just those cars, and having live streaming like this during the week of the auction. I'm still going to be in that middle, playing that middle guy,
Right.
and you make then the commission off the sale of the car.
That's
So
that's
that's the
fantastic. So you
goal.
can list other people's cars, list other
That's it.
people's
I do that
vehicles.
now anyway.
Yeah, right,
I sell
right.
for people because I got a good social media reach, and I could put a
Yeah,
blast out just on my Facebook platform, and I'm selling the car, you
yeah,
know, just in a couple days.
yeah.
So
Give me some of your numbers. Like, what's your YouTube base look like, and what do you also on Instagram? I'm assuming, or
yeah, so my YouTube is my larger channel. I do have Instagram and Facebook. They're moderate. They're not huge. All my push has pretty much been YouTube for all these years. Now, what's funny is the 18 years on YouTube, I hit a good stride in the beginning doing the how-to videos. And then I was hitting like a wall. It was like trickle growth. I guess, a lot of people then coming onto the platform, and you start getting some competitors, that kind of thing. And I was getting a little frustrated because I got production background. My production quality was very good with my videos. And then to see some of the competitors coming in that were just using their phone, I mean, they're playing with their cat at the same time. And I'm like, all right,
right.
how does he have 100,000 views in this video? And I'm like,
Yes. I
so
tried to warn you early on, man. I'm telling you, like production value is valuable, dude. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I love that. A guy, you see his big toe and his cat in the video, and you're like, and he's
yeah.
getting more views than you. What's going on?
I was losing it. So I almost threw the towel in. And it's really funny. And at the end of last year, the end of 23, I only hit 75,000 subscribers. So I was ready to literally throw the towel and say, like, I've been on social for so long. Maybe my channel's just so old and the algorithm doesn't like it anymore, whatever the case. I mean, and I've tried every SEO modification or boost with titles and thumbnails and tags and description. I got all that down. So I went on a mastermind course of a guy that's down here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He's got his own, he's kind of like a Tony Robbins in a way. And I took his mastermind course for 3 months. And just like this, and I actually spoke to him face to face because he was intrigued with the bug business.
Right.
And so I was ready to tell him, I'm like, I've got some trials and tribulations with the business. The part supplies are not that great, and the quality of workers, and my YouTube channel, I think I'm going to hang it up. He's like, all right, just stop talking for a second. He goes to my YouTube channel, and he's like, man, you're good in front of the camera. You got all the good stuff showing here. I want you to double down on your YouTube channel. I'm like, oh, I was like, man, okay. He's like, You got to hire a guy, go to Fiverr, you're going to hire a guy, find 100 different stories and history about the Volkswagen. Stories, history, Beetle. Throw that out there, make him an AI. That's when I started getting into AI. And I hired a guy who does 4 videos a month for me. And I pay him $480 a month, which is great. So I went from 75,000 subs at the end of 2023. And within less than a year, I'm just approaching 165. So I more than doubled my channel in 1 year that I couldn't do in 18 years.
Yeah.
On YouTube doing the how-to videos.
Yeah.
So he was telling me kind of in a way like, it's great that you did the how-tos. It got your brand, got your name, your generosity, all that kind of stuff. But you're at the game now where apparently it's not returning back to you. You know, you're giving out the free information and maybe there's a lot of takers and there's not a lot of coming back. So, which is fine. So you learn from these and things evolve over time. You know, the how-tos did great in the beginning. So then maybe, you know, so now maybe more of an entertainment channel I'm now going towards, or a historical channel, which is where I'm kind of going towards now. And that's really been the interest as of right now. So, and now once you cross 100,000 subs, Fiji Water contacts me, Sony contacts me, Aura, sponsors, that kind of stuff when you hit that different pocket now. So, and that's where you kind of make your money with YouTube. The YouTube revenue itself, depending on your channel and your content, of course, you don't make much money with the YouTube revenue alone.
Right.
I mean, it's great for a marketing tool. It was great for my business, my actual shop to have clients come in. But if you want to make it a living just with YouTube alone, it's going to be the sponsors, right? The affiliate links, you know, that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah. Right. All those little trickle streams of income that become possible, the relationships that it makes possible, basically, is a good way to sum it up too. Yeah, that's interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that that's the direction he would have advised, but it makes sense to me.
Me neither.
And you still, and I'm not a big YouTube guy. I've never claimed to be a YouTube guru. YouTube is kind of almost, for me, is like, it's a necessary. I throw all my podcast episodes out there, like this video will be on YouTube. I don't do anything to it. SEO, title, bullet point. I think I've got like 17,000 subscribers, something like that over there, just kind of because I've been doing it forever. But it's never been a focus for me. So it's always interesting for me to hear. But I do like it for getting that initial boost for anyone who's got some kind of unique creative skill or strategy or hobby or passion, where just film yourself doing it and see what happens. I had one of my clients one time, I felt terrible because he paid me to consult with him. And I advised him, hey, film yourself talking about your expertise. And he had some kind of strange, like, industrial safety certification training thing. Like, if everyone in the United States who was interested in his topic bought his thing, he'd have like 400 clients. Like, that's everybody. Okay. Like, it's such a niche thing. And I checked in on his YouTube videos after I advised this, and he had like 8 videos on one, 8 views on one and 20 views on another. And this is like 6 months after he'd hired me. I felt terrible. Like, well, I'm going to follow up with him, see how he's doing, check in on with him. And I'm like, hey, man, how's it going? I was expecting him to say, yeah, none of that really worked. But what he said instead was, my business is exploding because every single person who watches my video is like a perfect targeted prospect for my business. My business has exploded. I can't keep up with all the clients that I'm getting from YouTube. And I'm like, your videos are getting like a dozen or 2 views. What are you talking about? Like, the right people are seeing it, man. I'm the only one out there talking about this stuff. So there's a little tiny niche market.
You don't necessarily need the big numbers.
You don't.
Just, it's the target. And YouTube is a marathon. Yeah, we see a lot of these fairy tale stories where these guys, you know, they get 1 million views or whatever, just like overnight, it seems like, you know, and it just, they kind of pump that out there. So there's this deception with it. But if you're, you know, you can burn out very quickly trying to constantly put out that kind of content.
Right.
But if you have a service behind you, a product that you sell, you can leverage YouTube with very little. You know, you don't need that huge gargantuan, you know, view count. So, you know, I think if you're smart with it, you're entrepreneurial, and you got that, you know, something behind it, you know, physical to sell or actual service to offer, that's going to help you tenfold, I think. And the numbers aren't that important.
Yeah, we've had, you know, we don't get a ton of views on our videos. I think my top videos have, 20 or 30,000 views, maybe the ones that have been around a long time. But we get a nice steady stream of business from people
Yeah.
who see it, have a chance to engage with you. And I didn't intend for this to be a long, in-depth talk about YouTube, but I think the bottom line lesson, this is kind of borrowing from Gary Vaynerchuk philosophy is, and a lot of the other, gurus of traffic generation and all of that
Yeah.
will say, well, how much ever content you're generating right now, it's not enough. It's not diversified enough, and it's not on enough platforms, and it hasn't been repurposed enough. And if you think about it, it makes sense. I mean, you can hire a virtual assistant in the Philippines for
Yeah.
$3 or $4 an hour to just repurpose, and blast into new, like, oh, I'm not really on Instagram. Okay, well, you are now, mister. For $3 or $4 an hour, you got someone in the Philippines, and that's all they do is pound away.
Yeah.
So you're paying someone $50 a week now, and you've got a couple months from now, you got loads of good content that's been repurposed from your other good content, right? Just
Yeah.
blasting out content is how you win the game ultimately. And
Amazing.
none of us are doing it enough.
Right.
None of us are. There's just so
But
many.
for me, like I've been a solo guy doing it for so long. So like it's almost been two jobs,
Yeah.
right? Because to
Yeah.
do some of those how-tos I did were 9 chapters,
Right.
or, to rebuild your engine or restore the chassis or put in a headliner, or how to add, put the seals and the beading on between the fender and the body, all that kind of stuff,
Sure.
cosmetics. And
Yeah.
I would put so much time into those videos, sometimes 1 or 2 weeks to make those
Yeah.
videos,
Yeah.
like mini documentaries almost.
Right.
And, you felt the burnout.
Yeah.
You felt the fatigue with it, and to the point where, when you would get a little bit of traffic, to them. But yeah, that's all part of this learning. I think we're always learning. The algorithm always changes. So there's always new strategies, even every year. Now they're saying, like I heard some strategies, that tags aren't important anymore. Don't worry
Yeah.
about tags now. But I'm like, meanwhile, I used to learn about the tags and the hashtags, and don't worry about your description too much anymore, because now the AI will read your title and can read our conversation now. And it
Right.
grabs the wording through our conversation now. So you don't have to worry too much about the descriptions anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of the tips I would always tell people is don't drive yourself too nuts, because a lot of these algorithms are way over our head, and try to keep up as best you can, but don't lose sleep over it.
Right.
And especially like with AI that I've gotten into. I've even started a filmmaker group down here in Florida, and we had our third filmmaker meetup last night, and a lot of newbies were coming into the meeting, and they're just starting. And it's gargantuan. It's overwhelming to see all the different tools that are out there to create content. It's some people are like, I don't know which one to go to, and I'm like, just take your time. Don't become a scatterbrain with a lot of this stuff, because that could drive you off the wall.
Right.
Lost sleep over this stuff for years sometimes when you're thinking about this and that, and life is short. And I feel like, you need good rest and to be refreshed the next day. So just take your time. YouTube can blast out so much information at you when you log in. Once you start, liking one topic, it'll give you 50 other videos all related. Drives you off the wall. So just take your time, learn the stuff at your pace. A little bit every day is fine, because next month it could be a different strategy. So that's one take. It's a love-hate relationship, I think.
Yeah.
I have
There's
with
some
social media.
universal rules in what you're identifying right now, no matter what type of internet business or even business that you're trying to build. Anything you're trying to build that is with the intent of serving your customers well and maintaining profitability. There's a couple of rules you've identified, and the internet changed the game in only a couple ways. Business always has been and always will be about trying to provide a product at a cost to me as the business owner that's less than what the customer is willing and gladly to pay while
Right.
having a great experience, right? So they come back for more, and I'm able to stay in business. Business has always been that. But the way the internet changed the game is, we already alluded to one of them, and that is you can test new ideas so inexpensively.
Yes.
That's one, right? And you got to come to embrace that. You want to be failing constantly, in other words, because you're trying new things and it costs you $10 to fail. Okay, well, I tried it, didn't work out. Yeah, we move on.
Exactly. It's a fraction compared to what it
the
used
other
to
way
be.
it changed things is you've got to create a lot of content and always be learning how to do that and always be changing. You've got to be willing and ready to sign up for this game that
Yeah.
the rules could be different tomorrow. And you got to be okay with that. If you're the kind of person that says, no, I want things to be exactly the same tomorrow and 6 months and a year from now as they are today, I want to play that game. That game doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. And that's a hard thing to pivot into for some people. For me, I embrace it. I love it. I love waking up saying, okay, what are the 10 challenges I didn't anticipate that I'm going to have to fight this week? Right? Like,
Yeah.
bring it. Let's go. That's my
Yeah.
personality type. If you can find it inside yourself to say, okay, I'm willing to always be learning new things. I'm willing to shut down the things that I assumed were working or that I thought were working that aren't, and try some new things. So always be testing, always be learning.
Yeah.
Those are the two big lessons that I've kind of settled into after 22 years of just watching people like you and people on eBay and Amazon. And, when the platform makes changes, don't start screaming, running in circles saying the sky is falling. Instead, say, what does this now make possible that wasn't before?
Right.
That's the discipline. And you've done that. Obviously, you've done that multiple times.
Yeah.
What's possible now? Instead of,
and there's bumps and bruises along the way.
Of course.
It's a roller coaster.
Anything worth doing, man. Your marriage, your health, right? Anything worth doing is going to be bumps, bruises, mistakes. Man, what was I thinking? I was so stupid 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But what's fun, like we don't have to go to the library anymore to learn about or go to the card catalog, right? And take out a periodical and see what's the latest trends. The trends are coming faster. So, do you need university anymore? The fact that, you can pick up your phone and your education is right here now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I call it can't take that for granted.
Have you heard just in time education? Have you heard that phrase?
Yeah.
Versus just in case.
Just
right? Our whole culture was built up until the mid 80s, arguably the early 90s into the mid 90s on just in case education. Here, I'm going to teach you a whole bunch of stuff just in case you need to dissect an isosceles triangle someday, right? Okay. Now, I'm not anti-math. There's some basic math and English skills. We all need to know a little bit of history and things, right? Some basic foundation. But this thing of like filling my head with all the possible facts in the world, man, that's just a waste of time now.
Yeah.
It just is. Teach me what I need to take the next step for the direction I'm going right now. That's what I need just in time, right when I need it, versus all this just in case.
I agree.
Spinning of wheels,
totally.
Which is the always be learning, right? Always be learning and be willing to let go of what you thought you knew that worked 6 months ago. And so we've had to pivot multiple times. You came into our community when we were teaching all eBay. I was known as, in many circles, I didn't ask for the name, but people called me Mr. eBay. I'm like, okay, whatever. All right, I'll take it. Well, then suddenly Amazon comes along and kicks their butt and all the customers are going over there. We had to pivot.
Right.
So we talk very little about eBay anymore because they're like 2% of e-commerce in the United States and Amazon's almost 50%, right? So,
wow.
Well, they're 2 to 5%, something like that. You add them up plus Walmart, plus, like I said, all the other next 10 sites, and they don't come close to what Amazon is. And the reason that is because Amazon holds your inventory for you and ships it when it sells. eBay could have done that.
Right.
Just like Blockbuster could have been Netflix.
Yeah.
But they didn't. They missed their chance. eBay could have done that, but they didn't. They didn't say, hey, seller, we'll take all your inventory and put it in a warehouse. You can get it out of your living room, get it out of your garage, right? They never did that. They could have.
Yeah.
Amazon did, and they blew past eBay. So we pivoted, right? Because that's where the opportunity was. And you've had to do that many times. What are some of the big pivots that you've had to make? I'm just curious. Like you talked about getting into parts. Were there any scary pivots along the way? You've been doing this for, coming up on.
Thankfully, I haven't had any huge shocking things, thank God, knock on wood. I basically stayed the course for, when it comes to, so what's great about this car is like, I don't have to do so much volume. So it's more, it's a big ticket item, right?
Right.
So I'm not working on 30, 40, 50 cars a year. I'm working on 3, 4 restorations a year. It's a small number and I can kind of work at my own pace kind of thing. Most clients are understanding with the length of time. Maybe one of the scary things I had in the beginning was how to set up the payment plans for each client. How much do they put down in the beginning? How do I space it out? The progression, the milestones that we hit with the restoration. Some of the scary points we come into is, again, with our painters, I outsource the paint work. They can screw up the timeline and the cadence of our momentum when they say, okay, I'll be done in 3 months with the car. Oh, that's great. 3 months, that's excellent. I'm handing you the car completely stripped, gutted, off the chassis. Here's every piece of sheet metal you need to fix the car. 3 months, that sounds excellent. And then a year and a half goes by and they haven't finished the car yet.
Oh my gosh.
So
And the
those were
customer's
some
coming after
scary
you, not the
moments.
painter. Right.
Yeah. So they're going to come after me. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I always felt in my stomach, like, "Ah, how do I, I got to tell these people, and it's all on me. And I
Yeah.
can go to the painter as many times as I can to tell them, hey, I'm dying here. You got to
Yeah.
speed this up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we've come into some bottlenecks with that. And they're still kind of my Achilles heel after all these years. I don't know why so many of them they do such similar things, how they run their business. And I'll get people that email me from Arkansas or Texas and say, Chris, I got my car in this guy's shop for 3 years. He's not done with the paintwork yet. And I'm like, oh, so it's not just me.
Well,
I don't know why.
for the young entrepreneurs out there listening, and then there's this Gen Z is kind of catching on to this. My son, in his early 20s, married. His wife's pregnant with our second
Wow.
and third grandkids on the way right now, man. Beautiful blessing.
There you go.
He
Congrats.
runs a landscaping business. If you're willing to show up on time, people don't care what you charge. Work hard as a young man who's polite and look you in the eyes, shake hands, like, man, business everywhere. He's learning some hard business lessons and figuring that out, but the clients are everywhere. And I'm thinking, there's a skill, there's an artistic skill to painting cars. I'm sure there is. I couldn't go do it right now with excellence, right? There's a learning curve there. But if you're willing to go through that process, it sounds like, if you're willing to get your hands dirty and do some of these jobs, man, the world is just wide open. Mike Rowe talks a lot about this, the dirty jobs.
Yeah, I love Mike Rowe.
Yeah, he's your kind of guy. He's my kind of guy too. I love, one of the phrases I borrow from him all the time is, stop pursuing your passions and start taking it with you. Mm-hmm. Take your passion with you. Don't pursue it. Take it with you. Do what you do with excellence. Become very good at what you do. Become the best at what you do. Be passionate about it. Yeah. And the money will flow. The opportunities will flow, right? Instead of, we've got a lot of 40-year-old boys, 50-year-old boys. I just don't know what I want to do with my life. It's like, commit to something and go for it, right? It sounds like being decent at painting cars is so in demand right now. You can write your own ticket if you can turn stuff around. Right?
I tell them I can give you a bug a month if you do me right. Okay. And I think they still have a very tough time seeing me as a global kind of a business. I'm not a local business. I'm a global. You do me right. I get clients from all over the world that need cars restored. I can hand you something all the time. Mm-hmm. What's the problem? Mm-hmm. And sometimes they just don't grasp it. Like I got one painter that I deal with now. I mean, still his receipts to me don't even have a letterhead on them. It looks like you just typed it up in Microsoft Word, or notebook. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But, I need to know you're legit, like after all these years, you've been working with me for so long now. Let's get up to speed. But, some people just don't. It's what it is. And it's unfortunate. So that's been my Achilles heel. If there's anything that's been scary, it's been with them. There's been times I did have to take a car out of a shop to then bring it to another shop. And then that creates a whole other mess, because then that new shop you send the car to, he's like, yeah, I didn't like the work this guy did. I'm going to redo this. So now I'm paying double. Yeah. So it gets to that point sometimes. Yeah, that's been my bottleneck. And then, but you know what? Knock on wood. I mean, 99% of my clients are so understanding, and they're super nice people. I love them to death, and I still talk to some of them. I still friends with them. I still sometimes have lunch and dinner with them. It's a great thing. So relationships is huge. And I know we live in a tech world today. I still believe, our DNA is ancient. And we're still meant to talk face to face, eye to eye, frontal
100%.
lobe.
100%.
And, I don't like doing deals just through text. Mm-hmm. At least call me on the phone. Let's talk verbally, hear my voice and hear my tone. It's just the personalization. It still has to be in your product, I think.
Yeah. You're
that goes a long way.
It's actually an ancient Hebrew principle, thousands of years old, that the power of they have a name for it. A conversation that takes place where both parties are present versus, say, a letter written.
Yeah.
Right. There's an exponential curve there, and the power of, keeping it personal and connecting with someone. And even, I call it a superpower, especially for people under the age of 35 or so, or 30 that kind of resist the telephone as an actual communication
Yes.
device. Like if you
Get on
can,
the,
and I
yeah.
pounded this into my son who has this landscaping business, for example, like you
Yeah.
don't do text deals. You go to the person's house, you look them in the
Yes.
eye, you're going to close every deal
You
because people
will.
just don't do that anymore, especially young people. The ability to look someone
Right.
in the eye, have a conversation, shake their hand, that's a superpower
It's a
now.
super, I was just about to say it's a superpower right
It
now.
is.
If you're a young guy or young person out there into business, if you can get face to face, smile, show the light in your eyes,
Mm-hmm.
it goes a long way. I mean, when I'm walking on outside with my dogs or something and I pass somebody, I'm in New York. Hey, how you doing? Well, some New Yorkers are disgruntled, but me, I've always came from a happy-go-lucky place. I always say hello to people. Some
Yeah.
people are absolutely shocked when you walk past them. Like, wow, he said hello to me.
Yeah.
And some of them don't know how to react. It's
Yeah.
like they want to go to their phone and ask Google, "How do I respond to someone that just said hello to me?" I'm like, "Wait, hello. This is a tradition." So
Yeah.
sometimes, just doing that, or when you're in line, I always learned that if you're in line, let's say even the DMV, talk to the guy in front of you. Mention something. You never know where that leads.
Yep.
And always have a log line with your business. So if you have a business and someone asks you, "Hey, what do you do?"
Yep.
So this goes back to my filmmaking teachings or learning, was that you always got to have that log line ready to go. So when someone asks me, "Wait, what do you do for a living?" I restore the vintage Volkswagen Beetle. And they're like, wait, who, what? You do what? Yeah, the old bug with get out of here. That's so cool. That's all the time. So throw people a curveball every now and then, but have that instead of just saying, same old, same old. I just do odds and ends. Have a punchline, have something ready to go because you don't know who you're talking to.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you
And
landed
I
some
learned that
business that way? Found some clients that way?
absolutely.
Hmm.
Or I found a car that way. I
Right.
know a friend of mine that's got an old Beetle,
Yeah.
and he's got it's in his driveway. It's been there for 30 years. Let me give him a call. Sometimes it leads to something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know so or say a commercial, like I bumped into somebody. I said, I would love your car in one of my commercials. Let me get you in touch with somebody.
That's
That
cool.
you never know who you're going to talk to.
Yeah.
I learned that with the film side of things because you always had to have your punchline ready to go. Like I'm an independent film producer. I'm writing some
Mm-hmm.
scripts, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you know what? A friend of mine drives
Mm-hmm.
Woody Allen for a living. Maybe I can get you in touch with him. It's something like that. You just don't know.
Right.
So
Right.
communication, even though we live in this tech world today, we need to still have that human element in our
Yeah.
business.
Well,
Uh,
the darker our culture gets in that regard, like if you light a match on a bright sunny day, no one notices it. But as our culture drifts away from this normal human communication skill stuff, that match in a dark cave really shows up. People
yes,
they're going to remember. It's going to make an impression because so few people
very
do
true.
it. And that's
I
actually there's a
agree.
thousands of year old principle behind what you're saying right now too. It's almost like you've had some training in these things. I've studied a lot of this, the ancient Hebrew business principles and practices to the point where in the Hebrew culture, I don't know if you've ever heard this or not, but they would name themselves after their occupation. So if there was a
Mm.
word for the guy who restores VW bugs, like that would be your last name. You'd be Chris VW restoration guy. Right. And you still see it this day. That's where they got the Goldsteins and the Silversteins and the
Right.
Wasserman, who's the guy who
There
delivered
you go.
water. Right. Like it was built into your name,
Mm.
what you did and how you served God's other children. So marketing just by saying your name, right?
Yes.
It's
It's
so
huge.
so much a part of who you are. And like in our community, people are like, well, I just I sell random stuff to strangers online. Like, what do I say? Like, no, I know how to use the internet. I use the internet creatively to build income streams, my own and others. If you want to pick up some clients, you want to teach other people. That's what I do. That's a great opening line to have
Yeah.
conversations with people. And everyone wants to have more people in their life that can help them make more money and use the internet creatively. Yeah, let's have a conversation. They want to take you to lunch, and it opens up a lot of doors. But you got to be willing to say those things.
Yes. Well, that's the other thing too. Yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, if you have to work at that, if you're a homebody and maybe you've been playing video games in the basement for a long time, you're not communicating with people, learn it. Get that somewhat of that skill, build up some confidence and self-esteem because it's going to help you tremendously in the long run. When you come off confident, you come off as, like you said, you're becoming a leader. You know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that resonates with the client.
Yep.
When they walk into my shop, Chris, how do you just do this with this one, with the seat upholstery? How did you be able to stitch this and get this? And I would just totally explain it to them. Or if I know you in your business in and out, your product in and out, what happened in 1967? What was so unique about that year? Oh, that's a 1 year only Beetle. It's the last year of the old bumper, the hardback, the low seats, the hardback, the hard dashboard, all that kind of stuff. All this, you come off as the expert, right?
Mm-hmm.
The guru. And then you're going to make a sale
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
It's going to give them confidence that you know what you're talking about.
And the law of
So,
specialization is another thousands of year old thing, man. If you try to get good at 50 things, you're not going to be good at any of them. You focus in and you become a specialist, right? And
yes.
it may take some time for you to discover what that is, but it's always going to be as a result of serving others with excellence. And you'll start to
Yeah.
realize, because one of the stories I like to tell is like the guys who run the dry cleaner in our community. I bet as 12-year-olds, it's a couple brothers, as 10, 12-year-old boys, they weren't dreaming of one day owning a dry cleaning business, but they're passionate about it. They're good about it. Their employees smile, show up on time, leave reminders. They're phenomenal,
Yeah.
right? And they're passionate about what they do now because they're experts at what they do. They're known for what they do. They get
Yep.
paid very well to do what they do. So yeah, they've become passionate about that because the only thing you have to become passionate about is serving others with excellence, and then good things flow, right? Hey, pardon the short interruption, but I've got an important announcement. We'll get back to the show in just a moment. But have you circled this date on your calendar yet? If not, do it right now. The last 3 days of May 2025, join hundreds of listeners to this show in Orlando, Florida. We want you there. The website is 3 words long, theprovenconference.com, theprovenconference.com. We want you there. You're going to absolutely love it. It's the longest running Amazon seller conference in the world. Did you know that? It was also recently voted among all Amazon sellers who participated in a third-party voting. It wasn't us that sponsored this survey. It was a third party, neutral third party. It was voted the #1 reseller conference in the world, right up there with Amazon's own event itself, which they spend millions and millions of dollars on their event. We have a smaller budget than that, but what we do have is the content and the connections and the relationships and the tools to blast your business into the future. Let's get together the last 3 days of May 2025 in Orlando, Florida, with hundreds of listeners to this show. Theprovenconference.com has details. Get your tickets now. The resort is phenomenal, a very family-friendly place, multiple swimming pools right next door to SeaWorld. Bring your family, come hang out, come a few days early, stay a few days late. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait to see you in Orlando. Let's get back to the show. Because the only thing you have to become passionate about is serving others with excellence, and then good things flow, right?
Yes.
Well, man, you've dropped some golden nuggets today. It's been phenomenal hanging out with you. I'm kind of curious, what's next? You kind of alluded to it a little bit. If I was your life/business coach, I know what I'd like to shove you towards personally, but I'd like to hear what you're thinking. And if you don't mind kind of going through a couple of ideas that I have that I think might challenge you, or maybe you've already considered them. What's next for you? Paint a little more of a picture. You've alluded to it a little bit, but where you at?
God, AI is, if you can get in on it to some degree, I know it scares a lot of people, and I know they say it's going to take over a lot of jobs. It's only going to take over the job if you don't know it,
Right.
learn it to some degree. I know it's scary to some people. It's like Terminator, it's Skynet. They think it's going to become self-aware.
I don't think it's any of that, by the way. I think it's just faster computers, and
it is.
And just like, the buggy whip makers went out of business when the Model T came along. But those guys who learned how to work on engines did fine.
Right.
Like, learn how to use the new tools. Like I said before, the rules of the way the business has changed, as long as you're willing to change and try and test new things and always be learning, you're going to be fine. You're going to do great.
Yes. Yeah. You might not always be ahead of the curve, but, just keep riding the wave. I've been making a lot of AI content for the YouTube channel, and a lot of it's been resurrecting like old VW commercials, because VW had a great ad campaign back in the day. And so I've been kind of reworking those ads and putting them out there. I did one recently that's doing really well. I put penguins in with the Beetle and why the penguins love the Beetle.
You sent that to me. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
I got to stick that in the show notes. Fire me that link so people can watch it.
I'm telling you, I love it. And the next one is I'm putting King Kong in it. And King Kong, he dishes Ann Darrow and he goes for the beetle instead. So it's things
Good.
like that. With AI now, you can make things Pixar looking or even very Hollywood looking with this small budget.
Yeah.
And I've been a filmmaker, so I've been resurrecting some of my old stories that I wrote 15, 20 years ago
Right.
and bringing them now to life with AI that I could
Yeah.
never do back then because of budget. And my gosh, like it is so thrilling to see characters that I've written in my head or have painted or drawn
Hmm.
on paper and then bringing it to life and motion. Like, holy cow. So I got a couple horror trailers that I made that are action films, and I have the trailers now made from. So now with AI, you can make a movie trailer, and now I have the script and I have all the actors' headshots through AI to present to anybody that maybe want to invest in it. I don't know.
See
It's
where it
at that
goes.
point.
Yeah.
There's a paradigm shift happening. So if you can get on AI to a point, learn a little bit of it, it's rapidly growing. So I mean, every week there's a new tool, and it's just like, oh my god, it's something else I got to learn now. But and like Google's going to take this year by storm, I think, with their new video platform, VO2, it's called VEO2, and that image generator is off the chart. It's almost, you can't tell that it's AI. And you got to understand, they have their model. They have such a grasp of the internet and all the information of the internet and YouTube to build this AI model to pump out this kind of imagery, which is like, it's really breathtaking. I was like, whatever I just learned this past year, like I got to learn this now. So it makes my stuff look like a video game.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a car chase scene with the model, and it looked like a scene from Bullet. The old Mustang,
Yeah.
racing down the road. It's like, what?
Wow.
So, yeah, it can be a little intimidating for some people. Some of my followers are not liking that I'm using it, or they don't like AI at all.
Hmm.
And I have to update them to say, well, you're on YouTube, you're on Facebook, you're doing Google searches. It's all AI. It's all backed by AI to some degree. So you're using it too.
Yeah.
You might not know it, but
Yeah.
your phone is AI, your smart TV is AI. So I think it's here to stay. I don't think it's going anywhere by any means.
Agreed.
So get on it, use
So
it to
that's
your
where you see
advantage.
yourself pivoting. That's where you're going to spend your time. That's the next season is AI produced content and some of your passion projects there, right? So one of the things I want to encourage you though, that I think you need to commit, because you're capable of having multiple focuses, obviously. I think, do you have a podcast yet? Kind of doing what we're doing, where you're in my seat?
I tried starting called Show Us Your Dub, where
Hmm.
I would sit with people just like this, and they're in their garage and they're talking about their pride and joy. So I've
Sure.
done a few episodes of that. I would love to ramp that up more.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, and the reason I had a mentor of mine, Dan Miller, who passed away a few years ago, sadly, but a great mentor. He's the one who encouraged me to start a podcast. And the thing that tipped the scale for me, because I didn't need another project, man. But this ended up being the core thing, this podcast. And the reason is, and we've kind of already hit on it. You've got some people resisting the AI, like, I don't want to be talking to a bot, man. Well, if you can, the intimacy of getting in someone's ear, they're on a walk, they're on a run, they're doing their errands, and they've got their earbuds, their headphones on, and you're right there and you're talking and they're getting to know you. It's not a YouTube video that they kind of fast forward and scroll through and, get the parts they want and
Yeah.
skip every once in a while, see one every once in a while. But it's a podcast they subscribe to. I've had people, when I started the podcast, I started having, for the first time ever, people coming up to me with this expression that I would have if I got to meet, say, some of my sports heroes from my childhood, right? It's like, I don't even know what to say. I feel like I know you, but you don't know me from Adam, right? People that, because there's an intimacy, there's a connection there that's only
Yeah.
possible through that type of podcast, put the ears on, block out the world experience. And I think that would take you to the next level of whatever it is that's going to be really good for you. So I just want to encourage you. You alluded to it earlier. You're on a leadership journey. We all are. That's what business
Yeah.
is. It's ultimately a leadership and relationship journey. How do you add fuel to that leadership relationship journey? You build intimate relationships with the people who care what you have to say. What's the best way to do that at scale? A podcast, in my opinion. So I would just encourage you, do a few more episodes, even if it's just you talking through things, or even if it's just repurposed content.
Yeah.
But
You think for YouTube, you on the VW related or just separate? You think separate?
just go wherever you want, man. I mean, who are some of those influential? I mean, and, you've sold some cars to some pretty influential people. Like, hey, would you mind being on my podcast? It would be
Yeah.
an honor. If I would venture to guess that if you persistently sent very polite, kind, well thought out messages to Jerry Seinfeld, yeah, I'll give you half an hour, man. That's great. Matter of fact, I've been wanting to get bugs for my grandkids anyway. Just so those connections you've had, reach out, bring them on. And it doesn't have to be prominent guests. It could be any happy clients. That's what my show is 95% of the time. It's interviews with happy students from our community who have built a beautiful
Yep.
business, and they're sharing their story. It just so happens you go back, almost a couple decades at this point, but people from 6 months ago, same thing. But the conversation, it doesn't have to be production value through the roof. I mean, look at Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
What's he doing? What's the magic there? It's just
Just
real
talking.
conversations,
That's it.
right? No high production value, right? No special effects, no AI, no. You feel like you know the guy. I feel like if I saw a Jordan Peterson or Joe Rogan on the street, I could have a meaningful conversation. I know them,
Yeah.
right? You need to be that guy in your niche. People feel like they know you. You've been real for extended periods of time. On audio, that's the power. There's part of your brain that turns off when it's a video. Entertainment
Yeah.
can actually, too much of it kills creativity. We all know that. But audio, it's almost like you're reading a book into someone else's soul, right? It's a different thing when it's audio
Yeah.
than video. Modern psychology tells us this, thousands of year old wisdom. So this is just me telling you, I think that would make a lot of sense for you to focus on that.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'd love
Just,
to.
I think it'll take you some good places. It definitely
Yeah.
won't be a waste of your time.
That's something to definitely do for
And then you can
sure.
blast it out to your email list and your YouTube channel and say, hey guys, I got a podcast over here now. And if you've got a great bug story and you want to show up, and the other thing it allows you to do is it's a whole new medium where you can advertise too.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's what's the last one of the last videos I did. I was talking about the market, the current market of the car market. Usually kicks off in January because the big auctions start in January. Barrett Jackson, Mecum,
yeah.
Bonhams, Gooding and Company, all the classic car auctions kick off in January, and then it's good indication of what's going to happen throughout the year.
Okay.
And so I always kick the year off with just like this, just talking to the screen and sharing my screen and showing some of the cars on list. And just in that video alone, I said, look, you want to book a call with me? Down below in the description. And sure enough, I get 5 books, to sit and something exactly. So during that podcast, you can you definitely market yourself in other ways.
And you led me to the other thing, the observation. I'd like to see you have a coaching program of some kind. I could help you. We could talk offline, help you shape it
I'd
out.
love
I'm
that.
doing it for a handful of people right now. Actually, it's me following my own advice of once you're good at something, you step back and help others replicate the success that you've had by giving them the tools they need and the skills and the lessons that you've learned, and becoming a mentor to create your own future competitors, basically. Now, it doesn't have to be just VW Bug. It could be anything kind of in that sphere, and you could shape it out. But you'll have plenty of people that are willing to pay you well, probably more than you're charging now, is my instinct, a lot more, to help them kind of replicate what it is that you've built in their professional niche. I mean, you could have a very robust organization, and it didn't have to be you doing the coaching. I've got 60 coaches right now on our team. I do some coaches, right? I do some coaching, but I hype them up so much, and they truly are smarter than me individually, and certainly collectively smarter than me. The group is always smarter than the individual, right? So you get one of these great coaches who's succeeded using the programs we teach here. You can be working with them. I'm here as a backup if needed, which isn't very often. I'm not needed very often. I've built myself out of the organization. So getting into coaching doesn't mean you have to be the one doing it. Now, it's going to be your name. It's going to be your track record and your history, your credibility associated with it. But right, if you want Chris, it costs X. If you want one of my coaches, it costs a third of X, and you've got access to me when you need me, right? And a lot of people will take that option, right? So something else for you to consider, right?
Yeah.
You're at the point where you and I'm saying this to you, Chris, but I'm saying this to anyone who's kind of had a history of achieving and success and expertise and building a name for themselves and a reputation in a niche. And you got to get a coaching program. And I'd be thrilled to help you build it out. That'd
be awesome.
A fun project for me. So let me know if it's something you want to work on.
Definitely.
Yeah, very good. Well, any
for
any
sure.
final thoughts for the community, for the listeners who hung out with us today, man, before we start to wrap this one up? I got another call coming at me here pretty soon. I got to have to wind it down, but
Just kind of what we reiterated. If, follow your drive, bumps in the road, and technology's here, it's not going to go anywhere. So adopt it to some degree, but be personable and keep the human element in all this, because it's going to win in the long run for you. And it'll, like you said, you'll be the canary in the coal mine, or like the match in that cave where you really stand out with the more. I mean, it to me and probably to you, it's very basic because we grew up face to face with people and having friends and going out and hanging out with people and talking face to face. But we have a generation coming up that's only been with the tech, and bring that human element back into it. Go back to our ancient roots, and I think you'll be all right.
Yeah, yeah. Like we said, it's almost a superpower at this point. It's an unfair advantage almost.
Yeah.
Part of the best education you could ever get is the skill of, like my kids when they were very young, I would make them order their own food at the restaurant. Like,
There you
Dad,
go.
I don't want to talk to the waitress. I don't want.
Uh-huh.
I'm too. I'm like, then you're not going to eat. You're going to tell her what you want, and you're going to sit here and
That's
watch us eat,
genius.
right?
Yep.
All right.
Pick up the
Well,
phone,
they
order a
would kind of,
pizza, right?
look at the table, and then over time they got the confidence, right? And so it's a trained skill, but it's a very necessary skill. I love that you emphasized that. Yeah. Anything else,
And
man?
I think there's one more. I think Mike Rowe did mention something like this. We do live in a society where we follow in herds, right? There's a lot of people that want to be these Instagram sensations, these YouTube sensations. You ask your average elementary school kid today, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they're saying YouTubers.
Influencer. Yeah. Sad.
Yep. And understand that is so saturated.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very difficult now. It's almost like trying to get into the film industry, to see any sort of amount of success with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think, if I'm paraphrasing here, but he said something to the degree wherever the herd goes, go the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to
follow the herd to slaughter.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Yep. Because if you got everyone wants to be a YouTuber, there's still that electrician and that plumber and that carpenter that still needs filling. Mm-hmm. And you could do very well with that right now with less competition.
Yep.
And it might not be glamorous.
Car detailing and painting, as you've pointed out, right? The people who are willing to get their hands dirty and do a job with excellence. All kinds of opportunity there. Yeah. Look for an expanding market. I mean,
I'm telling you, sometimes, being that quiet millionaire is just fine.
Far preferred to be famous. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've known a lot of people of notoriety and fame that I've had this specific conversation. Actually, I worked for when I was, how old would I have been? 11, 12, 13 years old, somewhere around there. I worked with my dad for one of the wealthiest men in America. We were the groundskeepers. He lived in the Florida Keys, which is where we were at the time. Dad was a pastor, needed a side income. And this guy had negotiated grain deals with Russia, which was a big deal, 60s and 70s. And he got a percentage of all of the deals that were done back when, we were selling grain to Russia, and he was kind of overseeing that project. Tons of money, more money than anyone I ever met.
Yeah.
Not a happy dude, very well known, very recognized. Everyone knew who he was. His wife, to this day, I've never met a more miserable human in my life. To this day, just never happy, never content, never smiled, never. So, having money and recognition and people knowing who you are, that is not the path to. I learned that. I had the benefit of learning that as a young man. Now, having those things isn't bad, but they don't equal a great life.
Right.
Right.
And listen, I had a lot of guys that were a few millionaires that have come to my shop, Wall Street guys, financial guys, made a ton of money. And they would come to my shop. It was their therapy session. They felt at peace seeing us, me and my pop, having a little espresso, working on our toys. And they're like, you got it, man. This is, I pump in so many hours a week. My kid is 7 years old now. I don't remember 1 through 6.
Yeah.
Because I'm not home with my family. I make good money for them.
Yeah.
But where the happiness, I feel happiness, of course, is the other form of payment. Mm-hmm. I might not be a millionaire, but, I have a comfortable living with the Volkswagen business. And there's plenty of shops that do way better than me. But the fact that I worked with my dad every day, I played with my toys, I made my own hours, I called my own shots. That's another form of payment. And developed a good relationship with friends, and mentors that I've met.
Yeah.
That's gold, you
That's
know?
a kind of
So
wealth that doesn't show up in the bank account. I love that we drifted here. I had a friend of mine. I'm not going to tell you who it is because I'm not looking to disparage him. A good man, had a lot of money, very successful. Had a conversation with him a few years ago saying, man, I missed my kids growing up, made a ton of money, provided everything they ever wanted, but I don't know them. I got grandkids now that I barely know. Like we're
yeah,
strangers. And I got to fix that. He said, before I leave this earth, I got to fix that. This was a guy in his
right.
60s, right? Well, he passed away a year and a half ago. Suddenly, I didn't know it until several weeks later. Good guy, mentor, I know him fairly well. Like I even missed his funeral. Like what happened? Like where'd he go? He's gone,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
So left a nice big inheritance for kids he doesn't really know, right? Ultimately, that's his story, and
yep.
I don't want that. I want what I've got, which is I got kids who love me. They love each other. They're over here all the time, texting. They live
That's
close.
right.
Got great kids. Like I'm wealthy beyond imagination, regardless of what's in the bank. If I've got that, a wife that loves me, we're 30 years, just celebrated our 30th
That's
anniversary,
great.
and we've
Congrats.
never been closer, right? That's wealth, man. That's
Yes.
wealth, right?
Totally agree.
Yeah. So don't
Yep.
lose sight of don't lose sight of that. But it's possible to have both. We're not hurting financially. We're blessed, and that's great. It certainly beats being poor and struggling, for sure. Man, good episode, and I'm thrilled that we got a chance to reconnect, Chris. It's good. It's really good to
Me
see you.
too. It's definitely good to see you, man.
Thanks, brother. If I can do anything for you, please do reach out and
Well,
love
you
to
got
see it.
my
It's the
brain is
last three
burning
days.
now.
What's that?
My brain is burning now for
There we
the
go,
coaching
man. That's what
program.
I love
So,
doing. That's my passion is helping light a fire inside of entrepreneurs. Yeah,
oh yeah,
education isn't filling a pail with facts, numbers, and data. It's lighting a fire. That's what an educator's supposed to do, right? So I love
yeah,
that. But I'd love to see the last 3 days of May in Orlando, man.
yeah. I'd love to.
Yeah,
That'd
come
be
on
awesome.
down. Reach out to me offline and we'll make that happen. For the listeners who joined Chris and I today, thanks for hanging out. We do episodes like this a couple times a week. We've got almost 1,000 episodes. Most of them are success stories from students who have read a book or taken a course from our community, and we just kind of check back in with them and share how the business is going, the good, the bad, the ugly, the success. I hopefully challenged and encouraged you today with some of the things I shared. I know Chris did with a lot of the stuff he shared. Such a great story. It was an honor hanging out with you today, my friend. Thank you, Chris.
Same right back at you, my friend. It's an honor being here.
Thank you, sir. God bless the business building warriors. We'll have another great episode of Silent Sales Machine Radio very soon. Talk to you then.